So it's day 19 of Jewel of Arabia, and I'm actually recording this sitting in a cave, beautiful cave. The beach is about 200 yards to my right, and I'm actually in one of my favourite camping spots in all of Oman. And I've, over my 22 years here, I've been here 5 or 6 times, usually with the dogs in my Land Rover, sleeping in my roof tent, and sitting in the shade of this cave reading a book or doing some work on my laptop. It's the most beautiful place. There are ospreys, there are incredible archaeological remains, but I'm not going to say where it is because it's really special, and I don't want too many people coming here, but that's very selfish. But it's just a lovely place to end what has been actually, I would say without doubt, the most exhausting day on the trip, but a fascinating day, going through some amazingly diverse terrain again. And hats off to the team. Everyone worked really well today to get us out of a few challenging situations in the vehicles. I guess the challenge started yesterday evening when do you know what, we have an app on, most of us have an app on our phones to identify the stars and the planets, and we'd actually been looking at the planets, and Saturn has been very high and very bright in the sky for the last few nights, and we were looking at that. About half an hour later, we noticed that all the stars had disappeared. It was totally dark, and all the stars had disappeared, and we felt that spot of rain, and down it came, the first rain we've had on the journey. Bertram Thomas had quite a bit of rain. If you've been following our podcasts, about a week further back along our journey, when he was north of Bar Al Hikman, his tent got smashed down by violent winds and torrential rain. Everyone was soaked. For us, it wasn't quite so bad, but it certainly sent us scuttling, hiding things under the Land Rover to keep dry, getting into tents, and just after the rain came the winds, really strong winds buffeting the campsite all through the night until about 4 or 5 in the morning, when all was calm once again, and you could hear the desert larks calling through the calm of the dawn. But I don't think anybody had a good night's sleep last night, which has been the first night, because certainly I suspect the rest of the folks have been sleeping really, really well. But not last night, thanks to the wind and the rain. And then Dikra, Anna and I walked for about 10-12 kilometres across to the mouth of a large river valley that empties onto the plain, and Wadi Ainain. And it was here on Thomas's journey in 1928 that he photographed something. He didn't take many photographs, but he photographed an archaeological remain that are called triliths. So tri meaning 3, liths rock, so 3 stones, 2 standing diagonally with a capstone, and these triliths are arranged in long rows, and to this day, no one really knows what the purpose of them was. And a friend of ours had spotted them. I described the journey that we were doing. He, out of curiosity, drove this particular part of the route a few months ago and told me there were quite a few triliths in the entrance to the wadi. And this wadi, this riverbed, leads up onto a rocky plateau. So we walked for about 2.5-3 hours. Nigel and Ibrahim went into a community called Lakby just to get a few provisions. And quite interesting, when we read Thomas's diary, in 1928 he sent some of his men into Lakby to buy butter and flour, and when he caught up with them, he found them gorging on red locusts. So no gorging on red locusts for us, but we met at the mouth of the wadi, and sure enough there were several clusters of these trilith rocks, which were fenced off to protect them by the Oman's Ministry of Heritage and Tourism. But it was lovely to see them. It was lovely to look at the photograph that Thomas took in 1928 and try and align the background of the skyline to the position that he stood, which is not easy to do. Once we'd been with the triliths, then I'd say the sort of challenges started, because a very, very long, soft, gravelly wadi, very, very hard on the vehicles, really struggling. If you slow down, you've had it. And we managed to get most of the way along, but then one of the vehicles had a wee pinch on the wall of the tyre, so it was losing air that we had to re-inflate every 20 minutes or so, and didn't take long for the same vehicle then to completely shred a tyre. So we had to change a wheel in the hottest part of the day, and I have to say hats off to everybody, especially Nigel, who leapt into action there and got that wheel off, and up, car jacked up, wheel off, new wheel on, and we were on our way pretty quickly. But our planned sort of escape route out of that big valley, that big river valley, is not a house in sight for about 2 hours today. Our planned escape route up a steep-sided wadi was one that we backed away from. So obviously we have one of the vehicles with no spare tyre, so if we'd had another puncture we would have been a right mess. So we dropped back down into the bottom of the valley again, and about another hour heading west and over really, really strong corrugations which shake the vehicles to bits. Very, very tiring. Dust absolutely everywhere. We look as if we've been rolling around in flour, and everything's covered in a coat of dust. The vehicles are dusty inside and outside. But eventually we saw a few more camels and then a few more vehicle tracks, and eventually we popped out by a water tower and some houses, and we were reconnected, not to a blacktop road, to a graded road, and it was just lovely to drive with on a road that wasn't shaking the fillings out of your teeth. So we were all pretty tired at this stage. But everybody did really well, but we completely forgotten to eat lunch, and so we're all absolutely ravenous, and descended to a little fishing community which is off the main road over the top of the plateau, and once again we're on the shore of the Indian Ocean. It'll probably be, other than arriving in Salalah, which is where our journey will end on February the 4th, this is the last night that we'll be camped on the coast. So it's nice for us to hear the waves. We're about half a kilometre, 3/4 of a kilometre inland, up a tiny little recessed wadi. Above us are some lovely cliffs sculpted by the wind. We sat and had a cup of tea and had something to eat as soon as we arrived, because we were all pretty tired and pretty hungry, and a lovely osprey hanging in the air above us. Just a beautiful place. But just as a sting in the tail, the last 100 metres, one of the vehicles got stuck in some sabkha, and sabkha is sort of salty quicksand that dries pretty quickly, but that can be quite deceptive, because underneath it can be really slippery mud, and you've got to choose your way across it carefully. I walked across it to try and pick the best path. One of the vehicles followed my footsteps and got across safely. The other tried to follow a different route and got pretty much bogged down halfway up the wheels in really sticky, sucky mud. So bit of digging with our shovels, got the sand ladders out, and a tow rope and a shackle, and we managed to get the other vehicle reasonably close as we dare, because we didn't want to get two vehicles stuck. And then that vehicle, a little bit of slack in the tow rope, but managed to yank it out, and thankfully, to much cheering, that both vehicles were free, and we were able to get them to the lovely spot where we are now. And so day 19 today, day 20 tomorrow, of the morning of day 20, and we're going to start tomorrow by a walk. All of us will walk along this beautiful white beach, and if I say that this perfect white sandy beach is about 15 to 20 kilometres long, and along the majority of it there's not a single house or human thing to be seen, you can perhaps just imagine the scene that we're going to have tomorrow morning. So we're really looking forward to that. Got to be a little bit careful, because one of the vehicles now, we've got 4 tyres in it. We managed to get one puncture repaired temporarily using a bit of a corkscrew and a bit of rubber, so that seems to be holding, but we've got to tread a little bit gingerly now for the next couple of days until we get to a point where our friends who've loaned us the vehicle can get a couple of new tyres to us to make sure that we're safe for the last few days when we're travelling on the road. Certainly at the moment, with one tyre with a puncture, repair and no spare. We're going to be travelling fairly cautiously. It just means a slight rerouting tomorrow. We're not going to exit the coast up a steep rocky track that normally we would do. We're going to just backtrack and stay on the graded tracks and the blacktop as much as we can. So we're being as kind as we can to the wall of that tyre, because the walls of tyres are the weak point, and that's where we've got a little nick, and that's where we've got our running repair. But when I walked around the vehicles just now, the tyre is still up. So fantastic work. A little Bengali guy in the community, the fishing community close to us, who did a great job of repairing and refused to take any money for it. People here are so lovely. It's just, such a wonderful country to travel in. But we managed to persuade him to accept some money, and we felt much better for doing so. So I've no doubt it's going to be quite an early night. It's 9:15. The moon has not risen, so it's extraordinary stars in the sky. It's perfectly peaceful. There's a bat flying around, the lights around the campsite. The camera trap is out. Everyone's eaten. The kettle's on for a cup of tea. All the washing up is done, and I would estimate within 40 minutes everyone will be fast asleep and snoring, and deservedly so. I think the team have done brilliantly today, and on tomorrow will be an easier day, I am sure. Tomorrow was always going to be a toughie, trying to follow that wadi valley that Bertram Thomas followed in 1928. But we're in a slightly easy terrain today and tomorrow. So tomorrow will be easier. We are hoping to meet the wali, the local sort of governor of the local community tomorrow. And then hopefully tomorrow night we'll be camping in another really fantastic, spectacular location that we'll send you some pictures of on the social media.